We're live. I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of Heart to Heart with Bree. I am here with the Emperor, and we'll be doing a quick recap on the semis, and then we will start, a conversation about the upcoming final game. So, Emperor, please introduce yourself to the viewers.
Why, thank you again, Bree, for having me on your lovely platform. It's always a pleasure for me to be here to speak with you and your wonderful viewers. I am the emperor. Like I like to say, when I was born, my parents didn't know who I was, so they called me Richard Core. Um, I am a USSFB licensed soccer coach. I am a USSF licensed referee. I am the founder and technical director of Arja Soccer Academy. I am a former schoolboy football player with Titchfield High School, a national under 16 champion there. I am a parish champion and cup champion with Mandela FC out of Portland, Jamaica. I also play collegiately in New York for Monroe College, NJC AAA, Region 15 All Star with them. Also played with Mercer College and also played football in the Bronx, New York International Soccer League for, I think, three teams during the late 90s and early 2000s, and I am a ardent football fanatic.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation, and I would really like to thank you for doing these episodes. It's made the World Cup even more enjoyable for me. So, thank you once again. I'd like you to give a quick recap on the semis.
Wow. Thank you again. It's been a pleasure for me as well to share my thoughts with you and your viewers. The semifinal was such a great showpiece, right? The football was brilliant. A lot of unexpected scenarios. So if we were to start with the first one, France and Spain, from we started these series, I had picked France as the team that I thought was going to win the World Cup, even over my, every World Cup favorites, Brazil, because I genuinely thought that they were the team with the deepest squad in terms of quality. However, Spain came to the party in that game, and Spain stuck to their principles and executed their style of football, imposed their style of football on France much more than France were able to. That game reminded me of the 2010 World Cup final between Spain and the Netherlands. If you recall
Yeah, I
that World Cup
remember the
final,
game.
the Netherlands in that World Cup tournament were the France of this World Cup tournament. They were just playing some breathtaking football and blowing everybody else off the park. And when they got to the final game, it's almost like they changed their whole, way of playing throughout the tournament leading up to that game. Um, I don't know that France changed their way of playing leading up to the semifinal. I just thought Spain imposed themselves more on France and didn't give France the opportunity to get settled in the way they wanted to play. I believe France was trying to go too quickly from back to front, and even their passes in midfield trying to break through the forward line weren't connecting. And it's not because of their inabilities or anything like that. It's just that Spain got their spacing right to deny those passes between the lines and force the errors and the mistakes. So that was a really, really good game of football to watch. Tactical mastery on show there, and Spain was just the better team on the day and deserved winners of that semifinal. If we were to move on to the England versus Argentina game, and my dear queen sister, I give you my sincere, you know, uh,
Oh my
sympathies.
gosh. Thank you.
I know that you wanted to see England win so desperately. You talked about how you've watched them won the World Cup when you were 3 years old, and now you're looking forward to seeing them winning the World Cup as you turn 63.
Yes.
A lot of people, I'm sure, maybe not even England fans, but for some reason, Argentina seem to have gathered a lot of quote unquote haters for this World Cup. And I'm sure a lot of them joined the England bandwagon as well. That game was a game that started maybe the way we expected it, with all the fiery tackles flying in left and right. The referee letting some things go, seemingly more so for Argentina than for England, but it was par for the course. But it was good to watch for the neutrals. I believe that England taking the lead too was a good thing, because then we saw what at what both teams are made of. We sort of have this concept in our minds, based on maybe the leagues that the teams, the majority of the makeup of the teams playing, historical data. But this game in itself brought out the the DNA, the genuine makeup of the players that are on the field. And I'm sure we'll get into it as the show go on. But regardless of how we want to feel about, the refereeing or anything else, Argentina stood up and be counted when it mattered most, and
Yes.
England seemed to have, backed up a little bit too far in their shells. And you know I believe Argentina was just the deserved winner at the end of the
I
day.
agree. I agree. I mean, as much as I can't stand Argentina, they beat us fair and square. I mean, I can't make any excuses, any poor referee calls or whatever. We lost. We lost that game fair and square. So let's talk about the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And you can tell me what you think. When a team is happy and caught up in celebration, I get it. But I do think that whether we win or lose, I'm thinking dignity, grace, respect. You know, I think all these things should come into play. So I'd like you to address that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, before the game gets started, I'm sure we all, feel that way as players too, and coaches. We'll talk about this, like, look, let's be graceful regardless of what the results are. We also think about our fans. A lot of our fans have traveled a far away, at great cost to them, to see us. So let's, you know, celebrate with them. Let's show them that, it matters to us and it mattered to us. And you generally see that, in the thrill of victory. You've seen that, the teams, they always gather close to where most of their fans are in the stadium, and it's a party, it's a show. The excitement boils over, rightly so. They've just won a World Cup game in the last two games that we've just watched. Won a World Cup game that puts them in the final of the World Cup. So you can imagine the excitement that's there. They want to share that with their people, like I've said, who have traveled far and wide at great cost to them. So that excitement is there, and it's understandable.
Yes.
Um, you know, you can see also that some of these players, especially players who are familiar with players from the opposition teams, they might have played in the same club, or just out of mutual respect. You'll see a lot that they go over to console these players.
Yes.
You know, and that is where you talk about these things. Be graceful, whether in victory or defeat. So you want to share that with your fans, with your supporters, with your teammates. You also want to be mindful. Like I remember the 2010 World Cup that we just talked about, right? After the final whistle, I noticed we had Cesc Fabregas playing for Spain at that time, right? And I'm talking to my Gooners friend right now, and Robin van Persie playing for the Netherlands. And immediately after the final whistle, even before going to his Spain teammates, you saw Cesc Fabregas running over to Robin van Persie to console him, right? So this is what I mean. I don't know that Harry Kane and Lionel Messi have any history outside of their professionalism for each other, but you could see them embracing each other at the end of the game, showing that mutual respect for each other at the end of the game. And Messi and his Argentina teammates, rightfully so, celebrating with their fans. The England team, quite clearly heartbroken. You see this with the France team at the end of their game as well, quite clearly heartbroken. And high expectations on both of those teams from their nations, from a lot of neutrals watching, because a lot of people watch the Premier League all around the world.
Yes.
So England gained a lot of fans for that. France, I believe, there's maybe the majority of neutral people in the world. Were bringing them to win the World Cup because, again, of the quality and depth of their squad. So that was a disappointment for them and most people who were supporting them, to see them go out at that stage of the competition the way they did. It is hard to take. It is hard to take for the players as it is for the fans. But in the professional sport, you see people try to show some humility, try to show some
Yes.
grace, especially for their opponents, who they've just defeated.
Yes. definitely. I agree. There's a picture of Declan Rice and the Arsenal captain, and he went over to hug him after England beat Norway. And it's I saw where it said that he said all he could see was his captain,
Right,
and he
right.
went over to embrace him. I thought that was such a beautiful photo. And I
Yes.
do like to see that. And I tell you, it's as a fan, I know how brokenhearted I felt to see my team going out. So I can only imagine how the players feel, after all that hard work, after all the preparation, and then the big letdown, but it's all a part of the game. And as you said in the beginning of the series, like there's 48 teams, but only one team, you know,
That's right.
walk away with the cup. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind. I'd like you, we saw a lot of great moments in the semis. Can you give me your top moments?
Well, in terms of impact, right? So if we're talking about in terms of impact for the game, if we're talking about the France Spain game, the game was a very even game. We will say that up until the penalty, right? And it was such an I don't want to say it's innocuous because as players you have to be switched on all the time. And
Yes.
I do believe that Luca Digne got his whole body shape and his awareness wrong, right? And taken for granted that he was free and clear to take a wild swing at the ball. No communication from his teammates. And don't get me wrong, you are to be aware, right? You don't play football with your head buried in the sand, right? You're always aware of what's going on around you. Even when coaching the kids at a young age, you teach them, check your six, check your shoulders, right? See what's going on around you. And you also tell your teammates, communicate with each other, right? So if you're not looking, your teammates should be looking for you and informing you of what you might not see that might be a danger to you. So at that point, and we saw it happen to, I believe it was Harry Kane in the Croatia match, right? Where, no, Madueke, where Luka Modric took a similar swing, not seeing Madueke, and caught him, and England got a penalty from that, right? So there's no doubt it was a penalty, but that was a defining moment, and the game swung and swung far away from Spain after that moment, from France. I'm sorry, after that moment, they were never able to catch that moment back. So with all the firepower that France had, that we lauded throughout the whole tournament, it just couldn't get going. I mean, it didn't help that they also lost Saliba and had to make a defensive change earlier on in the game. But I think that moment, at that didn't happen at the time. I think it was 16, 17 minutes in, somewhere there's about. It might have been a different game. It was a different game up to that point. It was a fairly even keel game. But
Yes.
that moment swung the pendulum so heavily towards Spain, and France just never, caught up back. So, in terms of impact on the game, I will say that. Similarly, in the Argentina England game, and I've been hearing a lot of talk from pundits and former players alike, from England, and it's almost like people are saying England played the way, if they were to be honest, they expected England to play the way England has been playing for decades now. If you were to go back, I was even listening to Michael Owen earlier talking about instances where he's been involved in major tournament, and he referenced the World Cup quarterfinal with Brazil, where he scored and Brazil got a man sent off, and England didn't see the ball after that. Right, Brazil manipulated, dictated the game even with 10 men, and ended up beating England 2-1. So the point there being is almost like England falls into a shell, almost like a subconscious way of behaving once they're in front, not having that belief that they can overcome and push on further. So it's almost like, let's battle down the hatches and protect what we have. So I've seen this theme been recurring from pundits and former players alike. Like, if you go back and check the history, this is how England has performed in tournaments past, and this is the reason that Thomas Tuchel was being brought in, was to kind of banish this hoodoo, if you will, and get us over the line. So after England scored the goal, if you check the statistics for that game, they had, I think, 12% of the possession from the point of scoring the goal till the end of the game, not counting anything else that happened afterwards that may or may not be uh, um, put at the coach's feet, just the players themselves, the way they reacted, as if they didn't believe that. So, I don't know based on that if it helped England at that point to have taken the lead based on the psyche, as everyone else is pointing out. That's
I've
the
seen a
biggest
lot of I've
blow
seen a
off.
lot of comments about that. Now, let's talk about coaching mistakes, because as a coach, I just think it's your responsibility to be able to turn the game around. And it seems that we just have that problem when it comes to these big games where we're not able to do so. So I'd like you to address coaching mistakes. I mean, in such big games, I just don't understand it.
Bray, truth be told, as a coach myself, I get it. Players win games, coaches lose them. That's the way the football world thinks. That's the way fans behave. That's the way pundits talk. That's the way even players themselves sometimes act.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that coaches don't have a role to play. They certainly do. It's their team. They're the ones who set the teams up. They're the ones who train the team. They're the ones who set the tactics. They're the ones who have the responsibility to adjust it and make changes where it's necessary. Um, when we talk about the France game, I was a bit critical of the Shams in terms of, look, change it earlier. I thought it needed changing earlier,
Okay.
right? I was going back and forth with my brother, who's also a coach. We had him on the last time, right? And I thought he granted it. His players have been doing really well for him since the start of the World Cup, so I can see him wanting to give them time to turn it around. But as the game is slipping away, I mean, the front four from France, let's be honest, Mbappe, Barcola, Olise, and Dembele, they weren't having their best game at all. And I thought the one who was having the most impact in terms of causing chaos, getting shots off, getting crosses in, even though they weren't their usual quality that they were from the start of the tournament to that point, I thought that was Barcola. And that was the one that he brought off. That's just me from the outside looking in. Now,
Okay.
there may be more to it than what meets the eye, right? He probably has more information about his fitness levels or whatever, but it's his team and it's his decision to make. Yeah, for me, that was the one that was having the most impact. I think if anything, Elisa was having least of an impact.
Okay.
It could very well be because of the shift in position. Elisa was playing in the 10 position leading up to that game, and being very impactful. I thought it was a little bit all over the place and not getting the opportunity to have the impact that he had normally because of the way Rodri and Fabian Ruiz closed the passing lanes, right? Denied him the opportunity to progress forward and even make passes forward. So I thought that change should have been Olise, and I thought it should have been earlier. France, in my opinion, has enough firepower on the bench to replace that entire front four. And in my opinion, they didn't make the changes quickly enough. And in my opinion, the right changes in the moments. That is my opinion, right?
Yeah.
As far as it relates to, and credit to Spain, because again, Spain were very disciplined. They played the game the way they have been playing the entire time, manipulating the
Yes.
position, very patient and tactical in their build up, right? Very purposeful about the way they go about their ways, and allowing Lamine Yamal and Baena on the opposite wing to do their thing when they have the ball, and they were ably supported with Ayasabal and Dani Almo in their forward line. It was tremendous and awesome, and they played France off the park.
They did.
Could Deschamps have changed it earlier? I certainly believe so. But as it relates to the England game, we've lauded Thomas Tuchel and even Didier Deschamps throughout the entirety of the tournament, talking about them being the coaches who are most adaptable and
Yes.
have the players at their disposal to make the changes, but also making the changes at the right time. So here am I just spending a whole lot of time talking about my belief that Deschamps didn't make the changes at the right time and even the right changes. Um, Similarly, I felt like Tuchel. made the wrong changes and at the wrong time. That is my estimation. Um,
Yes.
I've since heard him say that um, he felt that the players already in their minds, pretty much to what we just talked about, fell back without him making that call, fell back out of a disbelief in their abilities to keep the ball, keep progressing the ball, and giving Argentina something to think about. Giving Argentina something to think about on the defensive side of stuff. Yet when he made the change, he brought off Anthony Gordon and brought on Ezri Konsa, right? A defender for your goal scorer and your most explosive player, your fastest player. I don't know that I would make that change as a coach. His
Yes.
justification was that Argentina was having so much possession anyway and putting crosses in the box anyway. Yet Argentina scored from two crosses, albeit one was a low cutback on the floor to Enzo Fernandez. But the second and the winning goal was a cross from the right side by Lionel Messi on his right foot, no
Yes.
less, right? With no pressure anywhere close to him, right? Enzo Fernandez scored that goal with no pressure coming to him anytime soon. So even when the ball was cut back to him, he had time to take a touch, set himself, and put a perfectly placed shot in the far right corner of the goal. So it doesn't help what you're trying to do with the changes that you make. And
Yes.
my estimation is if you have the ball, the only time you cannot be scored upon is when you have possession of the football, right? If you don't have possession
True.
of, you can be scored.
That's so true. That
So
is
if
so
you
true.
give up possession of the football, you're giving the other team an opportunity to score upon you. Now, Bukayo Saka didn't enter the field of play. And I'm not saying that just because he's a gunner, right? We know,
Right. No, no, no. I noticed that too. Yeah.
right? Eberichi Eze, same thing. Marcus Rashford came out with what, like 4 or 5 minutes to go?
That's it.
I mean, these are players who have ability, they have speed, right? So even if you're not trying to progress the ball through the thirds, right? If you recover the ball deep in your own defensive third, right? You could play balls up and over the top or into spaces to these guys. They've got the speed, they've got the ability
Yes.
to hold on to the football, or beat their players in 1v1 situations while the rest of the team try to catch up. So I felt that he got that wrong. And I hear is excuse. Well, I'm not going to say excuse. I hear his reasoning because we've always been
Okay.
saying that about him
Yes.
throughout the tournament as well. That he's very articulate in expressing his reason for doing things, and it makes sense, right? So I'm not trying to say that he's not been that guy throughout the tournament. We laud him for that throughout the tournament, but on this occasion, I felt like it's almost like he also fell into that trap of, okay, we're not going to get anything going forward, so let's try to stop them breaching our back line and just put as
Yes.
many soldiers as we can on the back line. And we all saw what the results were. It didn't work.
No, it definitely didn't. Who were your top two players in the semis?
I give this one some thought. And when I look at the Spain France game, for example, right? I mean, both teams are loaded with superstars, right? But Spain plays with fullbacks who get into attacking areas and contribute a lot to the attack, right? Mark Cucurella is a very enigmatic player who's you've seen him coming from a mile off, right? Um, and he gets stuck in. He gets stuck into the tackles, right? I mean, I think he even picked up a yellow card very early on in the game. Um, and I felt like that Spain have able wingers, great wingers. We're talking about Lamine Yamal playing on their right hand side, right? And Alex Baena playing on their left hand side. I mean, two great classic wingers, right? But they have the support from their fullbacks coming up outside of them or inside of them on the underlap all the time. And this has been constant throughout the game. I think Cucurella was a little bit less in his forward forays after getting that yellow card. But I would have to pick one of those. Spain controlled the middle of the park. I mean, not Pedri, Rodri and Fabian Ruiz were just monumental right? But when you think of what those players added to the offensive side and how they negate France's threat from Dembele and Barcola and Olise, right, in the wide areas, like you can't but give them a lot of credit. And I myself played as a left back in my later years, so I know what that requires. And Pedro Porro got the second goal playing from right back, and that's only his second goal for his country in a World Cup semifinal, no less. So in that game, with all the talent on display, with all the superstars there, I would want to go with one of either Paro or Cucurella as my player from that game. And in the France Argentina game, listen, we sound like a broken record saying this, but the difference maker was Lionel Messi.
Yes.
The difference maker was Lionel Messi. He might not have scored any of the goals, but he perfectly placed both of them at the feet and head of the two goal scorers. And he might not have been running around a lot, but he caused England the most consternation on the day. As little as he moved, he had everybody thinking about him and what he's going to do next and where he is and how do we stop him, and still couldn't. So, I mean, we might sound like a broken record here, but Lionel Messi was and is still the man, yeah, in that game and even now.
What are
You know,
you?
what's
Okay.
what's intriguing? I saw a photograph today
Mhm.
of Lionel Messi, a young Lionel Messi at I think 17 or 18 years old.
I've
Oh,
seen that picture.
baby. Yeah, man.
I've seen that picture. It's
Yeah,
so amazing, right?
boy, I'm telling you. Yeah. So now we get to see them go up against each other on Sunday.
And it's just crazy when you think back to that picture. Like when, if you would have told him this kid will be playing with you against you in the World Cup, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That I do love that picture.
yeah.
Now, what are you expecting to see in the final? I'm anticipating a lot of excitement, a lot of tension. I'm hoping it doesn't get ugly. What are you expecting to see in the final?
You know, when I think of the two teams that are going to be playing in the final and their natural characteristics, I'm expecting to, because both teams like to possess the football, right? Argentina, they don't play with a lot of natural width. That width is expected to come from their fullbacks in Tagliafico and Molina on the other side. Um, but Spain also likes to possess the ball. Very solid in midfield, and they use their width. They have, as we just talked about, their wingers all the width on either side, and they have Murray and fullbacks who go up and support those wingers either on overlaps or on the
Yeah.
laps. They're very smart about the way they do that. It's interesting to see how Argentina will deal with that, because what it means is that their fullbacks who normally give the width will have to be defending those wingers who are up high and wide, right? It means they'll have to have a covering player for that wing back who's either coming up on the outside or on the inside to support that winger from Spain. And it's already been highlighted throughout this tournament how, I don't want to say out of sync, but it's probably wouldn't be an off-colored word to use in this regard. The two centre backs for Argentina are in Lisandro Martinez and Christian Romero, right? There's been plenty of analysis to show how they don't necessarily play together in a line, covering each other and communicating
Okay.
well. So, if one of them gets dragged out of position by, either a winger or a supporting fullback, it's going to be interesting to see how the other covers the space, knowing that you have Ayasabal and Dani Almo, who's also pushing up in that front line for Spain. This is going to be a chess match of chess match. I'm anticipating that.
I'm really excited and looking forward to it. Who do you think? I am hoping that Spain will win. Who do you think will win this game?
You know, um, I genuinely feel Argentina has been that team that doesn't want to lose. They've
True.
fallen behind in almost every game
I've
in the
seen that.
knockout
I've
stage,
seen
right?
that.
and they just like refuse to lose, right?
Yes,
They have not given up in any game that they've played so far. And in the last World Cup that they won, they lost the first game to Saudi Arabia as well.
I
you know
remember that.
you know but I mean, seeing what Spain did to France in that semifinal, and France being the team that I thought was going to do that
Right,
to
right.
everybody else, including Spain. um, if Spain comes to the party with that assurance in the way they play the game, with that control of the game, the way they control it against France, Argentina are genuinely going to have the most difficult game, of the World Cup so far, because Spain, they don't rush. They
Right.
don't rush. They're very methodical, right? They're very calculated, and they will hurt you once they move you around in the way they want to move you around to exploit the spaces that they want to attack. They're very, very proficient and good at that. And I'm not saying Argentina aren't good at the tactics that they employ either. They're pretty good at that. And we saw with the changes that Scolani made in the game yesterday, as opposed to the
Yes,
changes that Tuchel made, right? His
yes,
team was down. He needed to get back in the game, and he kept throwing on his forward players, right? Bringing them on at the right time. And they all had an impact on turning the game around to get their
yes,
team in the final. So I'm here going on about Spain and their, ability to keep the ball and, creating the space where they want to create it to be able to attack it at pace. But Argentina are quite capable of, executing their game plan too. And we've seen that, and they're very patient. They don't know when they're beaten. So,
yeah.
I have to give you an answer, and I think Spain will edge it based on the way I've seen them handle that France team. But I would not be surprised to be surprised again by the great Lionel Messi and his Argentina team.
Okay. Like I said, I'm hoping, but we'll see. But I think it will be a very exciting game. And I'm definitely looking forward to, to seeing it. Now, I'd
And
like,
besides,
that's
Spain
okay.
does have three Arsenal players on there. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
Argentina should
yeah.
not lose.
So,
Yeah,
the
right.
benefits are still in it, right? So
Yep.
yeah, I'm like I said, I think these teams are evenly matched, and I really think that it will be an exciting game. Um, you know, we spoke about moving on earlier, and I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think as fans, and I think even players, having that mindset before even stepping on the pitch, accepting whatever happens, being able to walk away with dignity and grace, but also remembering that there will be other games, right? When, I've seen photos of fights, I've seen different photos, different videos of fans being really ugly towards each other. And at the end of the day, it's a game, so what advice would you give to players as you were a player yourself? I mean, the feeling of losing, but you also know the feeling of winning. What can we do mentally, to remind ourselves it's a game? And it tarnishes, in my opinion, it tarnishes the image of the game, but I think it affects the players, like the ugliness. Players may be afraid, that mental block as far as taking penalty kicks, because like this young man afraid to go back home to Colombia. So I'd like you to address that.
Sis, and thank you for that question. And I always take it back to, a recurring theme that I've been speaking on during these series, is that football is a microcosm of our wider society, right?
Yes.
The way we behave ourselves in relation to football is the way we behave ourselves, in life in general. My inspiration and North Stars, certainly as it relates to football, Coach Don Davis. Him and I were going back and forth with a couple of messages earlier today regarding a video that he sent me. And I was like, yeah, football is still the most beautiful game in the world that just cannot be scripted. That's just there for the players who put the most out, get their tactics right, win their individual duels, and are more efficient in either penalty box, will come out the winner. And he simply responded with one line that says, football is, in caps, life. And I get what he's saying,
Yes.
because to the point I'm making, it is a microcosm of the way we live our lives. So when we think about it, let's use our personal relationships, for example, romantic relationships, even, right? When we, get jaded or jilted in a romantic relationship, that affects us on an emotional level that, a lot of times for some of us is very hard to recover from, right? We
Yes.
need help to recover from that a lot of times, right? We need somebody around us. Sometimes we need therapy. Sometimes we need, another relationship, whether it's not just easy to walk away, right? From, a family member or a long held job or, an investment, anything at all that has meaning in your life. It's not just so easy to get up and walk away from it, right? A lot of us as fans, I mean, myself included, when we love a team, we love that team,
Yes, we
right?
do.
When you attach your heart to that team, you attach your heart to that team. So it's naturally going to affect you when the performances of that team is not up to your expectation. And we as fans, we have unrealistic expectations because we want
So
our
true.
team to win every single
And
game.
it will never happen.
Arsenal didn't win every game in their invincible season. I
Not
mean, they
right.
draw a lot of games, but we want them to win every single game. And we want
It's
everybody
true.
to perform at their top level every single 90 minutes they step on the pitch. We saw William Saliba break down without anybody touching him or being close to him. He just had the ball and just went down. Like he just crumbled. Like he was pushing himself
Yes.
way too hard for way too long. But we as fans, we don't care about that. We don't want to know that. Just get out there and play to your best all the time. And don't let me down. So I don't know that it is easy because let me tell you, Brie, it took me quite a while to let my heart breathe and beat even when Arsenal, loses
No,
games. Right?
trust me, trust me. There are games that sometimes I have to walk away from the television because it's like I can't take the pressure. And it's like I can only imagine how the players feel, but it's something that we take it so seriously, right?
Right.
Because sometimes it's almost as if I have to remind myself to breathe,
Right.
because it's like you find yourself like holding your breath. You're so engulfed into it. So no, I get it.
So I mean, it's almost like searching for utopia, and
Yeah.
wanting the best of both worlds. And I don't know that we'll ever have it, but I think individually and when we speak to each other, you have friends and family members that you can talk to and that they will listen to you. And I
Yes.
think we should, in every regard, because when you listen to these players talk, and these players, they want to give their best too, all the time.
Yes, they
They
do
always want
all
to
the
give their best.
time.
I don't know that there's any player that crosses that line with the intention to not give his or her best, right? So that they fall short of expectations sometimes, it's not just a reflection on them. They're playing against somebody else too. They're in a duel with another person who also wants to give their best, right? With another
Yes.
person who is fighting to make sure they come out on top, right? So it's not anybody going there with the intention of not doing or giving their best. And even with the best intentions, we are spiritual and mental beings, and we don't always get it right. We don't always function right for the duration of the time that we need to be functioning. So we just have to give each other that grace and give ourselves that grace to be that overstanding of
I
what other
agree.
people are going through. And just know that they did their best and they've always wanted to do their best and they will always do their best, and that it doesn't meet our expectation shouldn't be a reflection of wrath or anger towards that person or that team. So it's going
Well
to take
said.
time, but I think it needs to be human, societal, cultural shift, of the way we behave ourselves towards each other and even towards ourselves.
It's true. Well said, Emperor. I thought back to was a beautiful moment watching the English supporters singing "Hey Jude." They were serenading Jude, and to watch him taking that all in, you know, a beautiful moment.
Right.
And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, if this kid doesn't come through in his next game, they're gonna go from singing Hey Jude to you get where I'm going with
Yes.
this, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think it's unfortunate. I think that we have to remember what they have done in the previous games. And I know it's the past game is in the past and it doesn't count anymore. But I think we have to, you use the word grace, like remember to extend some grace, because I know that these guys, when they go home, they're second guessing themselves, the shoulda, woulda, coulda. And, you know, when it's done, because I think that's where the mental blocks come in for future games.
Right.
If a mistake was made, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and worrying about the fans, like how will the fans perceive me, when I don't perform 100%. And it's, at every single game, and they're human beings. And, I had to ask myself, like, could you go out and do what these guys are doing? You know?
Right. And we saw that already because most of the media surrounded Hurricane and Jude Bellingham, like, oh, they didn't
Yeah.
have their best game. And to your point, the way they played in the game before that, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
dominated in the game before that, and we have to put things into perspective because when you think about it, right, that Argentina starting team, every single one of them have a World Cup medal from the last World Cup,
Yeah.
right? And none of these England players, I mean, they all have, well, most of them do have championship medals from their club teams, playing in
Yeah.
the Premier League or in La Liga or in, the Bundesliga or whatnot. But it's different to playing in the World Cup or the
It's
European
that
Championship,
World Cup,
right?
it's that
So,
World Cup, that's the pinnacle, right?
right. So you have to give grace there because those players, those Argentina players, they know what it is like.
Hmm.
I'm not, they know what it is like to be in that situation, to deal with that pressure and to overcome that pressure, you know. So yeah, we have to be mindful, to be graceful to ourselves too, so that we can
I
temper
agree.
our expectation. Because I listen to a lot of the pundits talk now, and it's like a lot of them are saying if at the start of the World Cup, right, you said England were going to make it to the semifinal, a lot of them would have been okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now that England made it to the semifinal and didn't progress to the final, those same people who would have been okay with just making it to the semifinal are now on the backs of the players and the coaches for not getting through to the final.
No, I think that, I hate that. Especially people, it's like a lot of these guys, it's like you didn't win a World Cup either. So it's like you're second guessing a situation that, look, you didn't. If it was someone who would won a World Cup, I could understand it. But I think that, and I get the disappointment. Trust me, I shed my tears yesterday. But, I think that we do have to learn to let go and stop the beating up these players in the press and the coaches and all of that. And let's just move on. I think mentally it would help a lot of the players and the coaches, because I think, especially for the coaches, you know, to know you're being torn apart and your abilities being questioned, it has to be hard. Was I mad at the England coach yesterday? Yeah, but then I get it, he's human. And yeah, I think he made some mistakes, but we do have to let go and move on and look forward to watching a great final game. Now I have to talk about embracing the whole experience of the World Cup, because I think it is a beautiful experience. And there's one player that comes to mind. He was not one of my favorites because he plays for Man City. I know you know who I'm talking about, Harlan. He just came in. I saw a side of him that I'd never really seen before. I think he came to embrace the whole experience, whether Norway won or they lost the cup. He wanted to immerse himself in the entire experience, which I think he did. And I think he was a great example of that. I'd like you to talk about embracing the experience, the whole experience.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things I do want to caution is that, and even when we're talking about players at the end of games, winners and losers, and the way we revel in one or drown our sorrows in the other, is that when we watch on TV, we don't see the full sum of what's taking place because
That's
again, it's
true.
it's, it's designed for a certain effect. So they are showing
So
us
true.
certain things and certain people that they want us to see. But when you're in the stadium, right, to your point, the whole experience is a different experience. But it's a great point that you bring up with the way Haaland let himself go and be himself. You know, somebody, you see a different side of him to the football. He talks about the fact that he was born in England, right? Because his father was playing for Leeds when he was born, so he was born in Leeds. And he mentioned the fact that he had an England shirt before he had a Norway shirt. So you know, even though England knocked him out, he was going to be supporting England.
Yes.
So you know, I mean, things that you don't see when he's playing for Man City, right? And he's always seeming to be getting the better
Yes.
Gabriel, right, in Arsenal and for Brazil. So it's like you Alan
Yeah.
again, yeah, but he's a great player.
Yes,
He's a
he is.
right. And to your point, we are not seeing everything that's happening with these players when they get off the training pitch or they get off the game day pitch. You know, they're in these cities, embracing the cities, right? They're
Yes.
embracing the culture of the cities. I'm sure they all have stories to tell, you know, momentous to, you know, take back home and to, you know, share with their family as to what that experience mean or meant to them. There was a story I saw yesterday about a young man whose family is has a trait of well, I forgot the illness, and he's lost his mom, lost a couple of people in his family. I think he's been diagnosed with the disease as well. He ran the British Marathon supposedly with a refrigerator on his back. And I
Okay.
saw the things. I'm not. That's got to be a joke. But I didn't realize that he actually really did do that to bring awareness to his cause, and he wanted to go to the semifinal. And he mentioned the fact that Kobe Mino, who hasn't even played a minute in the World
Yeah.
Cup to date, reached out to him, reached out to him and secured a ticket for him to go to the game. So he flew
Okay.
into Atlanta yesterday on Kobe Mino's expense with a ticket to the game. Um, so it goes way beyond what we're seeing on the pitch and the snippets that they show us, you know, pre-game and after the game, because again, that's packaged and designed for a certain effect commercially. So you know, we're not seeing what the players are truly going through and how they are taking onto it, but I can guarantee you that they are to the best of, you know, because they're still here to play a tournament, right? Every World Cup is still about a tournament. So
Yes.
you have to be focused, you have to be locked in, but you do get downtime. You do get
Yes.
that recovery time and downtime to recharge. And I'm sure that when they do, they immerse themselves into at least the culture of the particular city that they're playing in
Yes.
learning, you know, what the natives do and the way they do it. So yeah, it is a wholesome experience for the players and fans alike too.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. It was nice to see a different side to Harlan, to see him smile, to see him. I mean, I really was impressed with him, his humility. There was a moment where he was doing an interview when they had beat Brazil, and Junior was passing and went to shake his hand, and he actually hugged Junior,
Mhm.
and he showed his respect, and
Right.
that's what I really liked. I loved how even when they were playing against England, he's still going and talking to the England players, hugging them and all of that. You could see that the game means a lot to him, and yeah, two different teams, but still respect as his fellow players, and they play in the same league. So it was definitely nice to see that side of him, and you have a whole new level of respect for him, because Man City has given us such a hard time. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't care for him very much.
And even the fans have that experience too, because I mean, there was even a report that I think it was the Miami Beach mayor who shut some streets down so that the Norway supporters could get to be themselves in their
Yes,
moment, you know,
that was
doing their rowing
beautiful
and all
to
that stuff, you
see.
know.
The
So
rowan. I
you know,
love it. Yeah, that was I thought that was I really enjoyed that. And it's nice to see the different traditions, the different ways that fans and teams celebrate. And it was nice to see people embracing that side of each other. I really love that.
exactly.
I have to ask you, what does the World Cup mean to you? And I ask you this because this World Cup, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but I'm looking at it a little deeper. Like for me, before it was okay, another chance for England to win the cup. But this time around, it was truly embracing the whole experience of it. I work nights, and I tell you, I had to sacrifice a lot of sleep to wake up to watch these games. But it was like, listen, it's every 4 years. So
Right.
you have to, you want to wake up early and watch these games. What does the World Cup mean to you?
You know, um, you know, my little man Kyle is up in New Jersey for the summer, and I would reach out to him all the time. Like he's 9 going on 10. Like, aren't you watching the games? Like, no. I'm like, you should watch some of the games. You have historical context when people are.
Yeah,
And I remember at that age, right, for me, it was the 1986 World Cup in Mexico, right? And I'm not saying that I sat and watched every single game, but I have historical context from that, not from what I've
yes,
heard, right, but from what I've seen, myself, and it resonates with me from then, all the way through this current World Cup that's going on now. And I'm a different animal, right? Like I describe myself, I'm a football fanatic. Like I don't care if it's football, I'm in. I'll watch, I'll play, I'll, listen, I'll talk about it. Like it's me. I immerse myself into it. So
yes,
that we get this pinnacle of football, this culmination of years of work, of people's life's dream and life's work coming together in such a spectacle every 4 years. I mean, for me personally, it is the ISFI, you know.
yes,
And it's also an opportunity, and especially with this World Cup and World Cups past, where we get an opportunity to bring the world together, because we say that and we see it's true. Football unites the world, right? That's the mantra that we take on around these times. And it also gives the opportunity for us to reflect, like, are we really being united as a people? Or are we
yeah,
only united for these 6 weeks and then we're back to how we are or was or want to be after this is done? Are we really taking the opportunity to hear each other, right? Try to really overstand somebody else's point of view and not try to impose, our will on others, or try to subjugate others, try to be unfair to others, right? But actually opening up and embracing the difference that makes us so much more alike, right?
yes.
So for me, the World Cup is all that, and it gives an opportunity to the least known and obscure people. Like now, I have to go to Cape Verde now, right? I have to go to Cape
Yeah,
Verde.
no, I get it. They said that there's been a rise in, people checking out, taking vacations there,
Oh yeah.
so yeah, I agree. Yeah,
One of my friends said to me, "Hey, have you seen the woman? I understand that they're all beautiful women there, and any woman there who's not beautiful didn't come from there. She's vacationing there." I'm like, whatever, whatever the reason is, my friend. But
oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So I mean, the World Cup is that it shines a light. It shines a light, and I'm hoping that it's just not shining a light that dims after the final whistle has gone in the final game, but it shine a light that brightens our spirit and
Yes.
opens our heart to each other, so that we can be much more welcoming, patient, kind, gentle, overstanding of each other. So the World Cup's all that to me.
Well said, well said. And I tell you, at the end of each World Cup, I go, it's like I'm thinking about the withdrawals I'll be going through, not getting to watch all the games and all of that. But I'm then I always remember the Women's World Cup is coming
Right
next
around the
year.
corner. Yeah.
So then it's like that gives me hope, and it's like I enjoy the World Cup. I enjoy it so much. I mean, it's such a wonderful experience to watch such a high level of football, to see the fans, the excitement, even in the moments of defeat, because you can relate to it. When you see fans like they're praying, and all of that is a part of the experience for me. I
Yeah.
love every minute of it. And
The little babies crying, you see
it's something when you see the
oh,
little kids cheering, and it's so beautiful. And I think what's even more beautiful is, even when your team is out of it, it doesn't mean you don't want to watch the rest of the games. It doesn't mean you don't want to watch the final.
yeah,
You still want to watch you want to embellish every moment of the experience. And that's what it's been for me. And it's like, oh my gosh, the anticipation for the Women's World Cup is even greater now, because it's like, what will they do? Because I'm expecting greatness.
that's
And
right.
I,
That's
and I
right.
think I think
And
it's
let's not forget,
excitement.
Let's not forget Kingston, Jamaica is hosting some games.
Let
So,
me
well,
tell
not this
you.
World Cup, not this
No,
World
right,
Cup,
but
the next
coming
World
up,
Cup,
right?
next World Cup.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that is very exciting.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to that. Now, the one blemish on this cup for me was where you could see politics kind of seeping in, and I don't think that politics has anything to do with the beautiful game. Should not There should be a separation. I think when it's time for World Cup, when it's time for football, it's football. Let's keep the politics out of it. I don't like when there's a blind eye turned to certain countries and their antics, or they're like, we mentioned Haiti. They didn't get to wear the shirt that they wanted to wear.
Right.
And then I saw the banner that Argentina took out after the game, and I'm like, why did they even think that was okay? So I'd like you to just touch on that before we go off the air.
Yeah, no, you're right. And FIFA own laws and bylaws prohibits government interference into football federations, their member state federations. Their own laws prohibits that. So that it is so rampant and blatant. Countries have been banned from FIFA sanctioned events for this very reason. African countries, you guessed it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this tournament more so than ever, it's just blatant. But let's not skirt around the fact that FIFA itself is a very powerful organization that does
Yes.
rely on their embeddedness with governments for pushing their agenda through. So it's almost like one and washing the other, and both of them washing the face. But it's hard to see and accept, especially when the people who are sanctioned for it are always our brothers and those people who look like us and from our motherland continent. Because to your point, Haiti's been playing in their jersey leading up to the tournament, played FIFA sanctioned games in those same jerseys. Those jerseys were ratified by FIFA, only to be told 2 days before the tournament that you cannot depict your own fight for your own freedom that is so significant to you surrounding the time that you qualify in relation to you
Yes.
fighting for and earning your own freedom. You cannot depict it here, right? Telling the Iranian fans and supporter that you cannot bring your flags from your original birth of your country here. You can't do that, right? By telling Iranians, you can't tell us what type of parades to parade outside your games that might upstir your religious and moral beliefs and way of living. You can't tell us that. We'll do what we want. Yet, now, don't get me wrong, sis. I don't have any ill will for Argentina, and I'm not in support of England in the conflict over the
The
Falklands.
Falklands, right? No, I get it. I get
I,
it.
I I'm not speaking to the actual issues surrounding that conflict at all. All I'm saying is, if your rules are your rules,
That and
you
that's what I'm
will
and that and
vehemently
that's where I'm going with this.
apply your rules to other nations. Right? When a streaker strip his clothes off and start running across the field, the cameras don't train on him or her anymore, right? They cut away from them, and the commentators tell us that some idiots got onto the pitch, and we're not going to
Yeah.
show that to glorify them. So we're taking a commercial break or we're focusing somewhere else. Your production team has the ability to do so.
Yes.
So that banner was unfurled is one thing. That it got into the stadium is another thing. That it got so much airplay is a whole nother thing, because you're in control of your broadcast
That's true. That's
and you
true.
get to decide what you show and what you don't show. So there's a whole lot around that just really doesn't sit well, especially when we watch our brothers and sisters not being able to express themselves the way they want when they have faced some unquestionable, unrefutable injustices, and they don't get to speak about it. They don't get to depict anything, showing their triumph or showing their strength, their determination.
I listen. I agree. When I looked at that banner, I was like, I want to see if there'll be any disciplinary actions taken. I doubt it, but I am curious to see how this will play. How this will play out.
We all know how it will play out, and we shan't hold any hope that any sanctions will come, any
Right,
meaningful.
and it's
Oh,
and that's bothersome. It's like you turn a blind eye to the things that you choose to, and I think if it's one thing for one team, it should be the same thing for all teams. So that, and they wonder why people are talking about favoritism and the bias that's been shown throughout this cup. So I'm glad we got a chance to address this, and we'll be back on Sunday after the Cup. We'll be doing a recap of the World Cup, and we'll be talking about the final game. And hopefully, Coach Andrew will be back with us.
yes.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate this. This has been so much fun, as I've said before, and I'm looking forward to Sunday.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and
Any
thank you
any
everyone.
score predictions for Sunday?
Wow. I would just throw something out there just to make it exciting, but I didn't think about it. I didn't think you was gonna ask me that. So I would say 2-1 Spain. I'll
And
say
I was
2-1
thinking
Spain.
the same thing. 2-1
Yeah.
Spain. 2-1 Spain. So
And sorry, because I have some great Argentinian, some of my dearest friends, my probably my best friend of ever. Like I've known him since I can remember myself. Jeremy and Big Ed Spence is an Argentinian fan lately. He's taking on to Messi. It's his one God, he calls him. And then another very good friend of mine, Damien Lifetime, we call him. He's an Argentinian fan. So, and these Damien so much so more than Big Ed. I know Big Ed is a massive fanatic, but Damien has been an Argentinian fan for as long as I can recall. So they won't be too happy with me saying Spain, but I'm not saying Spain because I have anything
no,
against Argentina.
I
I'm just saying
totally,
Spain because
I totally get it. But yeah, I agree with you, and we'll see the outcome. So I'm looking forward to our podcast on Sunday after the game. Take
for
care,
sure.
and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, my sister.